Toastmasters has a fantastic online education system. There's a Toastmasters pathway system on the Toastmasters website, and then your club will usually have a site where you input your information when you're going to give a speech. So I'm going to give information about how to choose and use the most appropriate pathway for your goal. The main purpose of Toastmasters Pathways is your education. It's all about you, because if you're not gaining benefit from Toastmasters, then what are we all here for? We're all here to learn, to help each other, to be supportive. The other purpose is to help the club officers understand how our club members are doing. We want to know who might need a nudge, who might need some extra support, that kind of thing. And it also communicates to the Toastmasters International so that they can know how our club is doing. It's called the club health. So they can see which clubs might need a little bit more help. In order to choose a pathway, you're going to start in Toastmasters Basecamp. When you log into Toastmasters, you can click on this first big box that says Go to Basecamp. You can either take an assessment, which will give you a suggestion for which path they think would be most appropriate based on your goals, or you can view all path options and choose which one you think is best for you. So we're going to look at all path options. They currently have 6 different pathways. There used to be 11, but they've reduced it to 6 because 11 was just too much. There's a lot of overlap in the pathways, especially at the lower levels of the pathways. So there are more active pathways, and if you have one of those pathways, you can still complete them, but they just aren't showing in this particular list. The presentation mastery pathway is the most common, and it's the most flexible, so it's one that a lot of people start with, but you can choose any one that fits your goals. Here's an example of the description of one of the particular pathways. It gives you a brief overview along with some details about what happens as you progress along in the pathway, what level 5 might entail. So you can view all the projects in this pathway. And I know this screen looks kind of busy, but I'm going to break it down in just a minute. So there's 5 levels, and every pathway has 5 levels. Level 1 is the same in every path, and then as it gets more complicated and your skills improve, you get more variety, more electives. So level 1 is just your icebreaker, how to write a speech with purpose, vocal variety, body language, and how to give and receive an evaluation. That's very standard fundamentals for giving any speech. Level 2 gets a little bit more complicated and varied depending on the pathway. And then, as you can see, when you open up the options or electives, levels 3, 4, and 5 have quite a bit of variety. For example, here's presentation mastery level 3, and this is not even all of the electives, but it includes storytelling. And storytelling is one of the most fundamental aspects of giving a speech, because you don't just want to give a bunch of dry information. People love stories. It is how we remember things. It's something kids love. It's a fundamental aspect of being a human being. Everything from creating visual aids to preparing for an interview or networking, things like that. And right now I'm using presentation software. Once you have chosen your pathway, then you're going to come back into Basecamp and you're going to click on your active pathway. This shows you an overview of all the 5 levels that you have, and you can expand them by clicking on the little down arrow so that you can see the details. And you can see the details of all of the different levels so that you can plan ahead if you choose. example, here's the icebreaker. It gives a whole bunch of different information on the left-hand side. There's a video, there's text. It gives you a lot of resources so that you can give the best icebreaker possible. There's also a before assessment. Anytime you give a speech in Toastmasters, they want to know, what do you know before you give this project? So you're going to do a little assessment. How comfortable do you feel with this topic? How confident do you feel? What information do you know? And then after you do the project, you're going to come back and do the same thing. They're going to ask you the same questions so that you can see how much you learned afterwards. And the before and after assessment are how Toastmasters gives you credit in their system for having done the project. That's the only way you get credit through Toastmasters. Once you've chosen your path and you are coming into our website for our club, you're going to sign up for a speech. You're going to choose your project, your pathways and your project by clicking on the little box. And you can collapse or expand to scroll down easily to what your pathway is. And then you can expand the pathway to scroll down to what your projects are. And you can scroll through them. It can show you what's coming up. You can choose the best option, what's most appropriate for your current speech. For example, I'm using presentation software here. But it gives you a good idea to plan ahead so that you can start thinking in your mind about ideas for what speeches you want to give in the future. Below choosing your pathways in your project, there's a little button that says Project Description. This is really helpful because it gives details about what is the purpose of your project. And if you want to scroll ahead, you can see what is the purpose of future projects. After you've reviewed the description, then you can input your title and your speech introduction. This will help the Toastmaster to introduce you during the meeting. Then after you've given your speech, you'll come back into the Toastmaster software, and this is where you'll do your after assessment. Now, some general pointers for giving a speech. Don't let the project title constrain you. Okay, you want to have fun, because some things are like, what's about mentoring, or it might be about your leadership style or something. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly, the title doesn't have to fit exactly to what your speech is about, but look at the project description and see if you have an experience that's relevant from your life that you want to share. As I've said before, review all the projects in your pathway so you can plan ahead. Use your hobbies and interests. These are things that you're already passionate about and that you know something about. You don't have to do a ton of research. You can just share something that's fun for you. Outside presentations can count if you're doing something for work, if you're giving a best man speech, if you go do some networking. There's all kinds of things that you can use that count. For example, if you want to inspire your audience, you could talk about taking 24 hours without giving or receiving text messages. We could all do some time without being super hyper connected to our phones. Talk about meditation. Anything that inspires you is going to inspire us. You can also use visual aids. If you like to cook, share a recipe and bring in some spice jars. If you like to work on cars, bring in some tools. Whatever it is that you find is exciting. And then using presentation software, I just did it using an iPad. We had tried it with the phone, but that didn't quite work. So anyway, but it's very easy to do it with an iPad or with other devices. So are there any questions? Yes, Jim?
When you're in a pathway, can you hop around and do various steps?
Great point. Yes, you can only get credit for finishing levels one at a time. So you have to finish level 1 to get credit through pathways for level 1 before you get credit in Toastmasters through level 2. But you can hop around and give any kind of projects that you want. You could give a level 3 speech before you've done level 2. You just can't get credit for the whole level until you've finished level 2. Now, I highly recommend that you finish at least level 1 before you move on, because those are fundamental skills. Good point. Anything else?
Has a path surprised you with how much you learned from it, or you learned something that you didn't really expect to learn?
Yes. I've learned the depth of how much I have learned outside of Toastmasters and how much it applies to Toastmasters, and how much everyday events can cause me to learn more about communication. How much I apply here also affects what I do in real life. For example, I had a great conversation the other day with a man in line at the grocery store. And that's because of things that I've learned here, and also a video that I watched the other day. It's all about connecting, having those real conversations. Yeah, Jim.
Is it true that regardless of the level, or regardless of the pathway, that the first couple speeches in level 1 are all the same?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as I believe, my understanding, yes.
And can you use the same speech in the second pathway or no?
I don't think you're supposed to.
Okay.